Hey there guys, and welcome to another episode of the Self-Empowered Podcast. Today, joining me is Galina Sherri, otherwise known as GiGi. She's the owner of GiGi's Dressing Room, or GiGi's, and yeah.
Thank you for having me, Peter.
It's such a pleasure to have you. What would you like to speak about today?
So your podcast is about self-empowerment.
It is.
So I guess I'm going to share some of my story with you about some of my journey and how my personal life together flowing with my work and how it sort of all formed itself into just finding my mission in life, my calling, and I guess all of that is part of the story we'll share today.
Awesome. Well, where does your story begin?
Wow. Well, does anything have a beginning or an end?
Where would you like to begin your story?
But I guess I wanted to share maybe about when I started my journey with the work that I do at the moment, with having a business, helping people express through clothing and find their style and find a way to not be completely hidden.
So what work do you do?
So my work is to do with clothing and colour. It's never as simple as, like, I almost never answer that question with, oh, I have a clothing store. I always say, oh, I help people be more body positive, or I help people feel like they can express themselves and not hide themselves, but instead wear more colour or love their bodies as they are. So this is sort of my work. I always see it from the human perspective.
So you don't feel that you're selling clothes necessarily, more that you have a space in which clothes are sold, but the purpose of the clothes is to sort of bring about a better feeling of oneself and to provide a transformation and a greater openness.
Yes,
perhaps.
definitely.
And freedom. More freedom within
exactly,
oneself.
Yes. And that amazing feeling of the human side of it also, but also sustainability and the way the whole planet at the moment is evolving towards more sustainable living. So even when you're selling clothes, I've evolved the business so that we don't push people to buy too many clothes. We say to our customers, buy less clothes, buy some staple items in your clothing, in your wardrobe, and then rent the rest of your outfits. So we're like a dress agency now. We rent outfits more than we sell. And so even that, the library and the sustainability of rotating outfits and not having to, so even through a business where it's still about retail, but still to be able to say to your customers, don't buy too much stuff, we don't need it. So that feels really special. That's like one of my proudest moments, is to bring the business to where I can be really authentic and honest and say to people, don't buy too much shit,
Yeah, like moving away from the sort of, oh, I'm gonna buy this from Primark, wear it once, throw it away, and just wearing stuff one time, when you could just rent a really nice piece and then somebody else can wear it and this can go on.
Of course, yeah.
And the clothing that we do buy for daily use can be of a higher quality, and yeah.
Of course, yes, and it can be all layerable, so you can wear it in layers. You don't have to constantly buy summer wardrobe and next season throw them away and buy another wardrobe. You just slowly, it takes a few years to accumulate a good wardrobe, and then you just once in a while you buy yourself a few good quality pieces, but not really shop all the time. So yes.
So it sounds like you've sort of discovered your own purpose and what your gift is to the world. But what was your journey to getting there? You didn't wake up one day and just like, I'm going to open this shop.
Yeah, definitely. It's really interesting because even in the beginning of my adult life, it felt like I wanted to work with people, because ever since I was 12, I started reading Jung and Freud, and I wanted to study psychotherapy. And ever since I was a little child, it always felt my deepest excitement was human nature and exploring it. I'd literally be, everything I would do is I would be, the other children would be just playing, and I'd be chatting to older people or whatever. I'd always be exploring, why is this person is a drunk? Why is he drunk all the time? Like, I'd be this child, this philosophical child, which totally was the weirdest thing for everybody else who knew me in like communist Bulgaria. It was like, what is this child all about? Like, they thought I was just totally weird. But yeah, so I was always had that resonance with deeper things and why are things a certain way. So when I was a mom of a very my young first child, I remember that moment where I was thinking, oh, I think it was the time when I was thinking this is the time when I was considering, and the plan was to go back to university and study psychotherapy. And it just didn't resonate anymore. At the time, I had already started, from my own collection that I had in my own house, I had already started doing Spitalfields and like these really creative markets where really creative people go there, like all the designers of fashion labels and like theatre people. And I'd already resonated in these places and connecting with creatives and with people who I really felt connected with. And so by that time, even though in my part of my conditioning was saying, no, go to university, this is like you selling some silly clothes in some market, it's like not a serious career. And at the same time, I did, now that I look back at it, actually I almost feel like just now it's dawning to me that I'm talking to you, how it actually, that time was a really breaking point, because even though for years and years I still had that programmed voice in my head, and my parents thought I'm wasting my life instead of getting a mortgage and all that, I actually, as much as deep inside I felt like this silly rebellious hippie, now I'm looking at it and think I'm so proud of listening to my innate wisdom, because yeah, it's funny, I think you can see it's just dawning to me right now. Thank you for that moment. Thank you, because I almost didn't, sometimes you have these little awakenings of how it actually happened. And I feel, because for many years deep inside, and from some people's view, I was a total failure, like my parents were worried about me, things like that.
Yeah.
So in the eyes of the world, I wasn't a person that was highly successful, gone for lots of master degrees and things like that. But so my journey started from there. And so I find myself about 18 years later with my own high street shop, and now I find myself that maybe only about 6 or 7 years ago it started shifting into, even that doesn't satisfy me. The whole creative scene and everything was amazing, but now that I have this shop, it's like I hate just selling shit to people. So that was another part of the journey where I really deeply had to take some time to meditate and really reflect on things, because it wasn't satisfying at all. And even at that time I felt, well, my business is still connected, me making a living is still connected to selling people stuff, and it wasn't right. So I think that was the time about 7-8 years ago, and I actually introduced rentals and really deeply felt like this is different now. I will, as much as it will take a time, and until you have your flow and everything, you might feel like not making sales, it doesn't make sense, but it somehow formulated that it was all about the people, and saying to someone, no, this doesn't suit you, don't buy it. And then 10 years later, now people are telling me, this is why we shop only with you, because you tell us not to buy it. Sometimes people just having this deep resonance after, I think people were really deeply affected and now recovering from the age of, I don't know if you saw these documentaries about the nephew of Sigmund Freud, how he literally made consumerism happen, and he programmed people buy, and they started making the subliminal messages and all that. So what my resonance, and when my shift happened, what it connected with my people around me, the customers so-called, which I consider friends, but it's like what happened with that resonance was that they just were awakening themselves from that consumerism, almost like a huge brainwashing into buy, the economy depends on you. And to have someone in a space where you first feel really comfortable for a few hours to just dress with no pressure, but then for the person to say to you, you know what, you have something similar at home, I know them already, because so things like that, and then for me to say to them, you have something similar, just don't buy anything today, or just get yourself something small if you really want to buy something, or don't buy anything, or you know, if this wedding is coming, let's just make you an outfit and just rent it. So I think this made the business so much more successful, just
because you weren't speaking to them as a salesman to a customer, but you were speaking to them as a sort of as a friend to a friend, giving an honest opinion, and you were actually expressing authentically to them, which then attracted them to this place. And that's what people really want from a dressing up experience, which is that authentic feedback, right?
Exactly.
And I actually remember a time where you came to me and you were struggling with, in your own mind, with the fact that this whole salesman thing, and you were telling me, Peter, I've had this vision, and I really, this is what I want my shop to be like. But I don't even want to sell physical clothes. I just want to sell these clothes made of light, and just to give people just light clothes that give them lighter feeling and that upliftment. It was
an actual dream that I had, yes.
Yeah, and I remember telling you, that's exactly what you're already doing. Because what you were doing is, you were selling clothes, but doing it so authentically and such that the clothes you're giving people, they are like clothes made of light, because they come with the energy, and the store has an energy, and people just seem to come to this store, and like meetings happen and chance encounters and really cool synchronicities. That's quite exciting. But these clothes, they're not just the clothes that they're taking, but the entire feeling of the way the clothes make them feel, the experience that took place there, and that sort of brings about, and that doesn't necessarily transform them just from that one piece of clothes, but it goes into their other clothes, and it just changes their perception to an extent.
It's like a metaphor.
It's a metaphor, of course, a symbol. Experience. It's cool.
Yeah, I remember when this happened is when there was a lady in the shop once. She came from work and she was saying, "Oh, I'm really sick, and I knew I'd come here and it made me feel better." And an hour later she said, "GiGi, I physically, literally don't feel sick anymore." And I remember, I think at the time you had come in and you said to me, "Mom, this is the dream that you had, you know, this means that people feel better." It's like a thing, it's like an energy.
It's like a healing space.
It's like a healing space, and it's a beautiful, beautiful, I feel all the time that feeling of just being able to facilitate a space, just being able to constantly keep that space open for people. It's beautiful.
It's just an open, warm home. But not home, but just, that energy. It's beautiful.
Yeah, thank you for your appreciation. I know you appreciate what I do. Thank you.
Oh, I'm super proud of you, and also it's just quite inspiring as well. Yeah.
Thank you.
It's very cool work.
It's, for me, it's really also inspirational for people to say that you could do really amazing work which could resonate with people, and which can transform and help people with actual things that inspire you and like make you spark. I could not imagine me with my personality, even if I'd gone and studied psychotherapy, I could not imagine myself being a person with a couch and just listening to people's problems all the time. I would never imagine. Now it would have been a wasted degree for me.
So because you are interested in colour and you're interested in clothes, so you're sharing that, and then through that comes this communication between people.
Yes, exactly. And
which spontaneously arises in communication generally, if somebody's open to listen.
Of course.
Which you create the space for.
And I've noticed as well with people in trauma and just even in general, just people, even sometimes through depression and things, people don't really want someone to sit and be like, oh, I'm gonna now listen to your problems. I think when you're in a space and you're doing completely different things, it almost then it naturally occurs. Like we've recently started, we launched something which is called GiGi's Experience, and I think we'll be renaming it Phoenix soon because I'm very inspired by the perfume fragrance. But we literally have our customers who buy gift vouchers for their friends, people who just really don't like their bodies, or they become mummies and they just never dress or never just wear anything and sort of hiding, and they just buy them this as an experience with me. So it's just really special that people started suggesting this to me before I even thought I can offer this service. People were like, Gigi, can I buy my friend your experience? And I'm like, this should be a service. So most of my services have started like this, people requesting.
Beautiful. Because then there's the demand for it. And if it's not just, oh, I'm going to create this service, try and sell it to people. It's like the people are asking for it. And I want to...
We've just had loads this year just through people asking for it, exactly. And
Beautiful.
It's so interesting. They just want their friends or sisters to experience similar things.
Beautiful.
I feel like we need to touch a bit more about the empowerment part of my story. I'm trying to think, because I was so proud of the whole business and how it all started, that I feel as a person, as a woman, there's something that I feel would be very inspirational to share, of almost, again, it touches on the times when I even mentioned earlier, like when you're younger and there's still a lot of programming and you've been told how your life needs to be and all of that, but I feel like I had so much fear inside me, which obviously you also have noticed in your witness, and it's like I just recently only really felt the power of not having that fear, and so I just feel it's obviously a subject that a lot of people talk about, and it's not easy to say to another person, oh, just drop all your fears, because it's such a personal journey and everything. But the biggest shift I feel with me to even feeling empowered, or even having that awareness that I feel empowered all of a sudden, that feels the moment where I just realize that everything is taken care of. So it's a deeper, it's quite a deeper understanding through meditation, through just my everyday journey, to just one day somehow I just woke up and I just was like, all the paranoia was just gone. Like I always before felt like something's out there to get me, and it's almost like I was thinking about it on the way here actually, that for some reason it's really recently, it really has been coming to my consciousness a lot about things that bother us, about, say, if we've done something, or I've interacted with someone and they felt like I wasn't in my integrity, or something happened where I felt like I was the asshole. This subject has been a lot on my mind today when I was coming here, because even those moments were holding me back, I think. And then you then have this fear of, like, the ego and your reputation, and be like, oh, I always want to be this amazing person. And I feel one of the biggest parts of empowerment for me was to be okay that maybe I was an asshole in the past as well, and I wasn't always perfect, and I was sometimes not in my integrity, and that I've actually done things that were total, not in my integrity, but just didn't know how to deal with things, therefore I didn't deal with it, therefore I stepped on somebody's feelings, or obviously wasn't very...
Well, the thing you said about sort of letting go of fear and all this kind of stuff, what I used to say is that fear and excitement are the same thing, and that facing your fears is what we actually really want to do, and that would expand us. But I heard a friend of mine called Mary Beth, she spoke about it in a much more beautiful way, a much more loving way, where she actually saw that when we're afraid often, unless it's like some really deep fear, what we're really afraid of is we're actually afraid to be excited, and we're afraid that it could actually happen and that we'd actually enjoy it, and that it'd be too good to be true, and we're almost afraid that we might actually be worth it, and we might actually be able to
sabotaging our own happiness.
Well, just afraid to accept that happiness because maybe it will turn out bad, or maybe it will be too good, and too good might be terrible. And what if it's too good?
Yeah, but so before you've snapped out of that self-worthiness where you're not self-worthy, where you are still feeling suppressed in your own. Yeah, I think so. So this is a very deep element of it, isn't it? When just one day just realizing as well your worth, and that you know you're doing your
and that's
best,
another thing you bring forward with your work, which is that people are worthy to wear nice clothes, or clothes that they feel good in, right, and that make them feel good about themselves. And the other thing you mentioned is about, what did you mention? The other part.
About things you've done in the past.
The other thing you mentioned, which is about things you've done in the past that might be out of alignment, or not positive, or not mature, for example. Well, there's nothing wrong with doing something wrong, because you have to make mistakes in life. And if you don't make a mistake, when you make a mistake, after you've done the mistake or the failed attempt, you get an idea immediately for a better way you could have done it, or maybe later. But you can, once you've made a mistake or an error, you can then see a better way that you could have done it. Without doing the mistake, you couldn't have attempted a better way. And if you see a kid walking down the street, not a kid, but a toddler learning to walk, and they fall over because they're shit at walking, you don't shout at them and scream and shout at them because they're an idiot and they did terrible. You see clearly that they stumbled over. They're still immature at walking, but only through that immature action can a mature action arise, and only through trial and error can success arise. I totally agree with you. It's there's no need to feel guilty about past errors, but they are in fact benefiting us, not just something to learn from, but something that's benefiting us, because that experience we've now experienced it, and we can try again and try again. And
I agree.
Yeah.
And I think there's two parts of it for me, because one part is that you are who you are because of your mistake, but the other part is the deep self-love that I'm learning towards myself. So even if I didn't think there was some amazing, deep, philosophical thing that I've learned or reason for these mistakes, even if I thought, there isn't any, do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Just to forgive myself, just because of self-love, just because to say, I was an asshole once in the past, or however many times, and even that's okay. And I just don't know.
Totally agree.
Do you know what I mean? Because sometimes even we philosophize it, but even that, just to say, this is just my journey. It just also, the more and more we understand that there's no black and white anyway, and what's good and what's bad anyway. But even just to say to yourself, this is a journey, and I wasn't in my integrity always, and now it's brought me to a path where I really check my integrity every day. I'm in a really flowy state, and it's beautiful. But even that was part of it. Even me to see not in my integrity what it means to not be in my integrity now is why I'm in my integrity, because I know how it is the other way.
Well, the self-love you were saying, I totally agree. So not only is it that seeing that it's benefited us, that mistake, but also seeing that if we now hold on to that mistake in a way where we feel bad about it or guilty, or even if you immediately do something wrong right now, or say something and you realize immediately it was inappropriate, not to hold on that feeling of blame and guilt, or oh no, I fucked up and let's just like act out or lash out even more, but just to let that go because we see that that's not actually helping us. That doesn't make me feel better. For example, we're like driving along the road and somebody cuts us off or whatever, and like let's say they are being an asshole. They're just rushing and they're just fueled on cocaine. Let's imagine the worst possible case scenario. They're just drunken on cocaine and they're just driving like mad. But you have a choice there, which is, yeah, I can shout a mad, and you go, fuck that guy, right? But then, and you immediately realize, but you can either keep that going for like half an hour, and then you're holding that in yourself for half an hour, or we can just continue with our own journey and story and let that go, and then we can do other things with our space. So not to hold on to that guilt in a way as well.
Yeah, definitely.
Because we see it doesn't serve.
Definitely, and I was connecting it with the main subject of empowerment. That's because this is when I felt most empowered, when I stopped having these little things, and I felt the more I feel that it's okay who I am is okay, all of it. That felt the most empowering, and that felt like I could see that other people are empowered around me. Do you have like, I was interested to hear like almost you, how do you see my work, like how through you've observed for years my work, how do you see my journey of empowerment?
Well, I don't know how much I can speak about it, but as in your journey with assisting empowerment or with your own empowerment, or
with my own empowerment, but you know,
with your own empowerment, right?
But I don't mind.
Well, I remember that you had a shop, and it was this small shop, and it was actually quite messy, and like it was just that you were worried and stressed about a lot of things and what people thought, and like so many different things, and there was this whole situation. And I'm so proud of how you actually not only moved to a high street store rather than an indoor market store, but you put in the time, you built it yourself. You were there every day just working at it, buildering and making stuff happen that you've never done before, just watching YouTube videos. And then you've created this light, bright, organized, beautiful space, and now there's space for people to come and talk and have a tea or explore and dress up, rather than come in and it's a bit crowded and you're worried and all this stuff. And now there isn't a worry in the air. There's this flow and this ease, and things just happen within that ease because there isn't anything blocking things or getting in the way of energy moving around as it would like to. So things can flow, and that's really beautiful. And yeah, and within yourself, you're very light and bright and upbeat, and it's beautiful to see because you're like a little bird that's flying out of a cage, and you used to be in this cage, and I used to always remember you when you were in a cage, seeing that it was your own cage that you'd made for yourself. Yeah. But also seeing within you this potential.
But do you remember that even then people were saying similar experiences like now?
Yeah.
Even in my limited space,
yeah.
I was helping people be empowered, express themselves, work with colour, all of that. I feel like I was doing exactly the same work. It
you
was
have
just
been.
evolved. Because it's very interesting.
But the more that you bring it into yourself, the more that it...
No, it feels now completely released. It feels completely released. But yes, it's a very interesting...
The process continues and the expansion ever evolves. But yeah, it's a beautiful space. And it's a beautiful journey. And I'm very proud of you.
Thank you, Peter. Yeah, no, I'm very proud of myself also. I'm not being like super...
No, it's good to be proud of yourself.
Yeah.
It's good to not just constantly work for progress, but to once in a while take a breath and acknowledge, yo, look where I'm at. I've done good.
Yeah, definitely.
Of course, it's not sweet to permanently bask in that, because then there's just...
No.
but it's nice to bask once in a while. and you've earned it.
Yeah, it's really special. Again, and it almost is a bit of a cliche when people say you can achieve everything you believe and all that, but how amazing is it that I was a 20-year-old young person who was a bit annoyed that, you know, in this capitalist system, I almost felt like, especially through clothing, I felt, gosh, the way people behave. I think that was the first thing that got me into this sustainable and vintage. I just really felt like it felt like a bit of a caste system, like, oh, you either had a lot of money, or all the rich girls I knew, or the ones with the rich husbands, would just dress with really quality clothing, and the other ones are just looking, you know, or dressing with things that just, you know, don't even last a few washes. And I just think it literally started from that, and then me making a little collection from a flea market that I used to go to, and literally start a business from that, and have all these other moms from school and in my house and say, come on, you can wear this, and it's a vintage dress from the 1950s, and you can go with that to your date tonight, and it's sexy and beautiful. And in the 1950s they still made things like Oscar de la Renta now makes them. And so this is my proudest moment, is that just from this wish from the inside for me also to dress and to look beautiful when I was still in a place with young children where I couldn't afford to dress with really good quality things, but just to show, especially in a country like England where everything gets disposed of, and all these flea markets and charity shops and thrifting culture. So it all started from there, and it's quite, so that's the empowering thing as well, starting a journey without a capital, without...
No. And like just going to car boot sales at first, and selling things on eBay, and still working in a supermarket at one point.
Only for 3 months.
A long while back, yeah.
Only literally for 3 months. Like, I don't think I can have a boss for too long. Talking about empowered women, are just not easy in the current system to have a boss for me. But yeah, it's, yeah, thank you.
Awesomeness. It was a pleasure chatting to you. It was a pleasure. Well, to the audience and to whoever's listening to this, if you guys have any questions for GiGi that you'd like to ask them in the comments down below, and we might have a follow-up video with questions and answers, and we can ask GiGi and see if a dialogue comes out of that as well. It was a pleasure having GiGi here. Galina, GiGi,
thank you, Peter.
my mother. Thank you.
Thank you, Peter.